Setting up your paperless pipeline account to be specific to your company's workflow and needs is the best way to ensure a pipeline will be successful for you and your team. All customization and setup takes place under Admin Settings. Click your name in the upper right, then click Admin Settings. I'm going to cover the customization options that we found to be most critical to a company's success first. I'll let you know once we get to settings that are less critical. Let's start with Locations. Locations commonly represent the various physical offices of an agency or brokerage, but they may also represent teams or any other group that benefits from having their transactions, permissions, and users segmented. For example, you may set up a location for different physical offices like Broadway or North Side office. Or you may create separate locations for different teams like Martha's team or Team Evergreen. Keep in mind that once you add more users to your pipeline account, you'll be able to give them permissions within locations. That means you can grant agents permission to perform certain actions in a single location only, or within multiple select locations. And same for admins, set them up to manage transactions, docs, and users in a single location or for multiple locations. To manage your locations, click Manage Locations from the left menu. When your company signed up for Pipeline, a single location named after your company name was created. From this page, you can add new locations, edit a location including its name, address, and phone number, or deactivate any locations that are no longer active. Next is Transaction Labels. Transaction labels represent the property type of a transaction. Common examples of transaction labels include residential, commercial, parking lot, rental, or condo. Pipeline will support as many types of transactions as your office supports. The transaction label will typically be specified on each transaction as soon as the transaction is created. Transaction labels will play a critical role later when setting up checklists to be automatically added to transactions based on their property type. To view and customize your transaction labels, click Transaction Labels from the left Admin Settings menu. From here, you can add new transaction labels or rename or remove existing ones. Now, transaction statuses. A transaction status identifies a transaction's current stage. When a transaction enters a different stage, its status should be updated in Pipeline to reflect that stage. For example, when a property is initially listed by your office, the status may be set to listed. Once an offer is accepted on the property, you may edit the transaction and change its status to pending. Then once it's sold, you might change it to closed. It's best to name your statuses based on terminology your office is familiar with to make it easy for your agents and admins to manage their transaction workflows. For example, some offices use the term pending to indicate an offer has been accepted, while others may use both accepted and under contract as their pending statuses. Having multiple statuses in a category can also help you precisely fine-tune exactly when a checklist should be automatically added to a transaction. To view and customize your transaction statuses, click Transaction Statuses from the left Admin Settings menu. From here, you can add new transaction statuses or edit or remove existing ones. One word of caution. We often see companies try to commingle their statuses with either the transaction type or label, or with the side of the transaction they represent. So we might see them being named Pending Residential or Pending Buying. Avoid adding that unneeded information to the status since the property type and side are already tracked elsewhere in Pipeline, and it makes more work for your team to have to evaluate those criteria each time the status gets changed. Instead, cleanly name your statuses by simply stating the actual status, like listed, or accepted, or pending. Continuing with the critical list of items to customize, the next one is standard document names. Standard document names are a predefined list of your company's regularly used doc names. They allow your team to effortlessly name uploaded docs, and they also help keep the names of your documents clean and uniform across your account, which is a huge factor in keeping an organized and easy-to-manage account. To view and customize your standard document names, click Document Names from the left Admin Settings menu. From here, you can add new doc names either singly or in bulk, as well as edit or remove existing doc names. Your account comes automatically set up with a group of sample document names, but be sure to edit, remove, and add to the list so that it reflects the full list of document names your office commonly uses. And don't worry too much if you've forgotten any. Using one of these standard doc names is not required, so users in your account can still type in a different doc name if needed. And of course, you can return to this page to add any new or forgotten doc names at any time. For each doc name, you have the option to set a default permission category for it. Presetting a default permission category means that whenever that doc name gets used, it will automatically have its permission category preset to the one you've defined, eliminating both the analysis and the clicks needed to give the doc a permission every single time it's added to a transaction. Those predefinitions take the time-saving factor of standard doc names through the roof for nearly all of your team members. And same goes for presetting document labels. If you use doc labels, which we'll talk about a little later, you can preset them for each doc name, so that whenever that doc name is used, it will automatically have its doc label preset to the one you've defined. Let's take a quick look at how a thorough list of standard doc names helps make naming docs effortless. Whenever a doc is being added or named on a transaction, the system will immediately highlight the doc name field so that all a user needs to do is type a character or two, which will whittle down the doc name's suggestions to a manageable list from which they can select the correct doc. And when permission category and doc label have been predefined, it makes the uploader's job nearly effortless, with just a simple click needed at that point to complete the process. Next up is the most important tool for driving your transactions to completion: checklists. Checklists help admins and agents stay in compliance by allowing you to track documents and tasks that need to be either uploaded or completed on transactions. And because they can be set up to be nearly fully automated, they are also one of the largest opportunities to save your team time and pipeline. And always remember that the checklists are designed to fit whatever your office's current workflow is. So don't feel like there are any rules or restrictions for these checklists. They should be used for whatever helps bring your transactions to completion. So let's talk about how checklists work. Click Checklists from the left Admin Settings menu. From here, you can edit existing templates, copy them if you'd like to make a similar but slightly modified version of the template, download a template for offline use, or delete a template that's no longer needed, and you can add new templates as well. In order for a checklist to ever be added to a transaction, it must first be created as a checklist template. Once a checklist template has been created, it can either be automatically or manually added to transactions. Let's add one now. Click Add Template. Keep in mind that all the customization options you see on this page are optional and only need to be set if they're applicable to the checklist and tasks you're customizing. Give the checklist template a name and enter the tasks that need to be completed for the checklist. Set special criteria for any task, including set the task to automatically be given a due date that is relative to another date on the transaction. For example, we'll set this earnest money task to be due 2 calendar days after the acceptance date. Setting these relative due dates at this checklist template level means you won't have to manually add due dates to each task on each transaction. Select who should be able to see the task. Limiting who can see certain tasks helps make sure your users aren't overwhelmed or taught to ignore tasks by regularly seeing tasks that don't pertain to them. Click the key to set important timeline tasks as key dates, allowing them to be synced to calendars, appear on cover sheets, and auto-filled in message templates. Click the person icon to specify whether agents should be allowed to update the due date of the task. This is typically most appropriate for non-compliance-related tasks. Then, it's time to determine when this checklist should be added to transactions. Setting up checklists to be automatically added to transactions helps your company stay in compliance and save hours of admin and agent time. And since most checklists are relevant to transactions once they meet very predictable criteria, Pipeline allows you to define those criteria to help make the system hands-free for you and your team. If you're not able to predetermine criteria for when a checklist should be added to transactions, it can be manually added to transactions as needed. But, if at all possible, set the checklist to get automatically added to transactions based on criteria you set here. You can set them to be added based on the status of a transaction, which side you represent, and the label or type of a transaction. For example, if I set this residential listing checklist to be auto-added to transactions whenever the status of the transaction is listed, the side of the transaction is either side, and the label or type of the transaction is either single-family residential or multifamily residential. Then, whenever those 3 criteria become true on a transaction, this checklist will get added, and the people responsible for fulfilling the tasks can get started on them right away. You can optionally take advantage of other checklist-related features, like mentioning people or groups of people within task names to highlight those tasks for them wherever they see the task. Taking mention a level further, you can use it to actually restrict visibility so that only the people mentioned will be able to view the task, which is a great way to assign tasks. Lastly, matching your task names to your standard doc names, so that whenever one or the other is clicked or hovered, the match will automatically be highlighted, allowing you to find the matching item you need to check off or review instantly. And one last note about checklists. Keep in mind that checklists save your team the most time when they're applicable for specific scenarios. Long, uncategorized kitchen sink types of checklists cause more work, add clutter, and lead to tasks being ignored. Numerous targeted checklists added at the appropriate times are usually more effective than fewer broad checklists added all at once. So when you're adding more checklists to your account later, keep that organization strategy in mind. Okay, one last note about checklists. We know checklists can be complicated and sometimes overwhelming depending on your needs. So please always remember that we're happy to hop onto a call to help walk you through, answer any questions, and get you set up properly for this incredibly important area of the system. So the last critical page you need to be sure you've customized is the company settings page. It's the page you land on whenever you click admin settings, or you can click company settings from its left menu. I won't go over each of the items on this page because each one has a nice tooltip when you hover over it that tells you exactly what each setting does. But don't miss taking a peek at each of those items. We speak with many customers on a regular basis who don't realize the options they can turn on or off from this page that make the difference in their day-to-day workflow. Nice job. You made it through the critical items. The following few items are a bit more optional than the previous items but can help boost your office's productivity if they're features that would be useful to your office. The first is optional transaction dates. Optional dates are additional date fields you can turn on in your account. When turned on, optional dates will be added as an editable date on transactions, so you can track that date for each transaction. Any turned-on dates will also be added as options when pre-assigning relative due dates to tasks like we talked about earlier. For example, if you enable the appraisal date, you can set a task to be due a certain number of days before, after, or on the appraisal date for that transaction. To turn optional dates on or off, go to the company settings page by clicking admin settings. Scroll down to the section for optional transaction and trigger dates, check or uncheck the desired optional dates, and save. Next, the commission module. The commission module is a paid add-on module within Paperless Pipeline. Whether your agents are on splits or pay a flat fee, have commission tiers or caps, or collect a check at the table or from the brokerage, the commission module simplifies the entire process seamlessly into your transactions. Specifically, you can calculate agent and broker commissions, generate commission disbursement authorizations and production reports, give agents access to commission statements and reports, and more. If you think the commission module may benefit your company or would just like to take it for a spin to see if it meets your office's needs, click Upgrade Downgrade from the left menu of your admin settings menu. Click to view prices and plans, then click to start a free trial. Next up, document labels. Document labels are custom color-coded labels you can add to your account that can be used to categorize and sort documents. Common examples of how doc labels are used include highlighting docs that are missing signatures or initials, labeling docs as rejected offers, flagging docs as ready for review by a managing broker, or simply labeling a doc to classify its type like as an addendum, disclosure, or escrow doc. So if your office could benefit from categorizing docs in any of these or other ways, consider setting up your doc labels by clicking Document Labels from the left Admin Settings menu and entering any desired doc labels next to the desired color. Next, you can use Pipeline to track where your buyer and seller leads come from, allowing you to measure the effectiveness of your advertising campaigns. Click Lead Sources from the left Admin Settings menu and add any sources from where your buyers and sellers are sourced. Once they've been added here, users can specify from where each buyer and seller was sourced when they add them to the transaction. Then, you can run reports and searches to gain insight into where your leads are coming from. The last page to set up is Business Holidays. We talked earlier about how you can set tasks to be due relative to other dates on the transaction so they don't have to add the dates manually. For example, setting a closing disclosure task to be due 3 business days before the close date. Well, if you set any of those tasks to be due based on business days, be sure to add your business holidays to the system so they can be considered in calculations. Saturdays and Sundays are automatically excluded from business days, so you only need to specify your company's business holidays for the calculations to be accurate. To view and customize your business holidays, click Business holidays from the left admin settings menu. Add the name and date of your company's holidays and copy them from year to year if applicable. If you ever have any questions or need any assistance at all, our friendly, knowledgeable team is here to help. We're here to make sure you're successful, so never hesitate to reach out no matter how big or small your question or need is. We're always just a click away under the Help menu.